Did you know that dialogue can make or break a story? In fact, studies show that 85% of moviegoers say they remember the dialogue before anything else. Whether you're watching a hit film or reading a best-selling novel, it's often the sharp, memorable lines that stick with us. But here's the shocking truth. Most writers miss the mark when it comes to crafting great dialogue. Instead of bringing their characters to life, bad dialogue can sink a story faster than anything else. In this guide, we're diving deep into the art of writing good dialogue, no filler, no fluff. We'll uncover what separates great lines from cringeworthy ones and show you how to use dialogue to connect your characters with your audience. From crafting unique voices to mastering the rhythm of speech, we'll give you the tools to level up your writing. Stick with us, and by the end, you'll know how to make every word count. Ready to turn your dialogue from average to unforgettable? Let's get started. Chapter 1: The Invisible Bridge. Dialogue that connects versus dialogue that isolates. Great dialogue acts like a bridge between the characters and the audience. It connects the two, making the audience feel involved and invested in the story. Bad dialogue, on the other hand, often isolates the characters, making their conversations feel unnatural and disconnected. A simple way to avoid bad dialogue is by making sure each line serves a purpose. If a conversation doesn't move the plot or reveal something important about a character, it likely belongs on the cutting room floor. According to the story grid by Sean Coyne, every scene, including those with dialogue, must have a clear objective. When dialogue helps the plot move forward, it strengthens the connection between the characters and the audience. Think about how characters in Friends or The Office have their own unique way of speaking. It's not just about what they say, but how they say it. These characters become more relatable because their dialogue feels like it mirrors the real world. If you can write dialogue that feels natural but also moves your story forward, you're building that invisible bridge. In contrast, bad dialogue often includes lines that feel forced, repetitive, or full of filler. A study from Writer's Digest showed that readers often lose interest when they can't connect emotionally to a character's words. To avoid this, aim to make each line feel essential to the emotional core of the scene. Here's a pro tip: try writing dialogue that surprises you. If a character says something unexpected but truthful to their personality, it's usually a sign you're onto something real. Don't be afraid to take risks with what your characters say. Make sure that your dialogue isn't just about talking. Instead, it should push the story forward and create a meaningful connection with your audience. Just like a bridge, great dialogue carries the story across to your audience, while bad dialogue leaves them stranded. Chapter 2: Breaking the Mold. When conversations don't sound like real life, but should, it might sound strange, but some of the best dialogue doesn't sound like real life at all. If you've ever read a novel or watched a TV show where the dialogue felt a little too perfect, it's because it's been crafted for impact. In real life, people don't always speak in neat, tidy sentences. But in storytelling, it's about getting to the core of the emotion, not copying real conversations verbatim. This is where bad dialogue often fails. It can sound too casual or meandering, losing the focus needed for a good story. Take The Godfather as an example. The dialogue isn't necessarily what people would say in everyday life, but it carries weight. Every word feels deliberate. In On Writing, Stephen King explains that real life is full of boring, filler moments, and great writers take the essential truth and refine it into something more dramatic. This doesn't mean you should cut all real-life elements, but it's a reminder that conversations should be shaped to serve the narrative, not just mimic life. Here's the key: good dialogue edits out the mundane and highlights the significant. It shapes the world you've created while staying true to each character. Writers like Aaron Sorkin, who is famous for his fast-paced, intelligent dialogue in The West Wing, don't rely on natural speech. They edit and craft it to create tension, humor, or drama. While real-life conversations are often filled with awkward pauses and unfinished thoughts, great dialogue cuts through that noise to capture what's important. To create dialogue that doesn't sound like real life, focus on rhythm and focus. Rather than trying to mirror exactly how people talk, aim to bring out the emotional core of the conversation. Keep your characters in mind. Each one has a specific way they would speak, so think about how their personality influences the way they express themselves. Avoid unnecessary details, and trim anything that doesn't push the story forward. Your goal is to break the mold, creating conversations that may not sound real, but feel true to your characters. If you're enjoying these tips and want to level up your writing, don't forget to subscribe. Let's keep crafting better dialogue together. Chapter 3: The Power of Subtext. What your characters aren't saying speaks volumes. One of the most powerful tools in writing dialogue is subtext, the unspoken words that tell the audience much more than the actual lines. Great dialogue doesn't always tell the audience everything. Instead, it leaves room for interpretation, making the audience feel like they're in the know. Bad dialogue, by contrast, spells everything out. If your characters always say exactly what they're thinking, you're missing an opportunity to add depth and intrigue to your story. Take, for example, the famous line from Casablanca, "Here's looking at you, kid." It's simple, yet loaded with meaning. On the surface, it's just a farewell, but beneath it, you can sense the character's love and regret. That's subtext at work. In The Art of Dramatic Writing, Leos Egri emphasizes the importance of subtext, saying that what is left unsaid often carries more weight than what is spoken. When done right, subtext allows your audience to decode the emotional undertones of a scene, making them feel smarter and more engaged. To write good subtext, first think about what your character really wants in the scene, not just what they're saying. In many cases, what they want might be different from what they say. Maybe they want to leave, but their words suggest they want to stay. Or they might express anger, but what they really feel is fear. This layered approach adds depth and complexity to the character's emotions, making them feel more real and multi-dimensional. Writers like Quentin Tarantino are masters of using subtext in dialogue. In Pulp Fiction, characters talk about seemingly trivial things, but the underlying tension and fear about their situations are palpable. Subtext allows you to layer emotions like tension, jealousy, or guilt beneath the surface of your conversations. The best part? The audience gets to dig in and uncover those emotions themselves. Subtext also makes dialogue more interesting because it invites the audience to pay closer attention. In The Great Gatsby, F. Scott Fitzgerald masterfully uses subtext to convey the tragic nature of the characters' lives. The dialogue isn't just about what they say, it's about what they choose not to say. Great storytellers don't just tell the audience what a character feels, they let the unsaid things speak for themselves. If you're finding this advice helpful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on more writing tips. Chapter 4: Voice and Vibe. Crafting distinct personalities through dialogue. One of the hallmarks of great dialogue is the way each character's voice is distinct and true to their personality. A character's way of speaking tells us a lot about who they are, their background, their education, and even their emotional state. Bad dialogue, however, can make all characters sound the same, which removes any individuality. Think about your favorite shows or books. One of the reasons you remember the characters so well is because they have their own unique way of talking. Whether it's Yoda's cryptic phrasing or Sherlock Holmes' sharp, precise observations, great dialogue always reflects who the character is. To develop distinct voices, you need to understand your characters deeply. Author and screenwriter John Truby, in his book The Anatomy of Story, suggests that each character should have a unique set of desires and fears, and these should be reflected in their speech patterns. For example, a confident character might speak in quick, assertive sentences, while a nervous character might be more hesitant and long-winded. This variation in rhythm and tone adds authenticity and keeps your dialogue from feeling one-note. A study by Psychology Today found that people subconsciously adjust their speech patterns based on social context and emotional state. This means that a good storyteller needs to show how characters adapt their voices to the situations they find themselves in. For instance, a character might speak more formally in a professional setting, but let their guard down and use slang when with friends. These subtle shifts in language help to keep the characters grounded in their world. In The Elements of Style, Strunk and White argue that clarity is essential in writing, but clarity doesn't mean stripping away character voice. Instead, you should focus on making the dialogue true to the character's nature while still being understandable. When you get this balance right, the audience begins to recognize characters by their words alone, without needing any extra explanation. Chapter 5: The Rhythm of Speech. Pacing your dialogue like a pro. Pacing is one of the most important, yet often overlooked, elements of writing great dialogue. Good dialogue doesn't just provide information, it keeps the audience engaged by maintaining a rhythm that matches the tone and energy of the scene. Bad dialogue can become sluggish and repetitive, dragging down the momentum of the story. The key to keeping your audience hooked is knowing when to speed things up and when to slow them down. Consider the sharp, fast-paced exchanges in The Social Network by Aaron Sorkin. His dialogue is known for its rapid-fire delivery, which mirrors the urgency and tension of the film's subject matter. In contrast, slower, more deliberate dialogue can build suspense or emotional depth, like in The Godfather, where every word carries weight. According to Screenwriting 101 by film critic Nina Sadowski, pacing is often a reflection of the emotional undercurrent in a scene, and adjusting your dialogue's rhythm can amplify that feeling. When writing dialogue, think about the emotional beats of the conversation. Are the characters angry, excited, or sad? If the scene is tense, short, quick lines can create a sense of urgency. On the other hand, if the characters are processing something deep, slower dialogue can help create a reflective tone. A good rule of thumb is to match the rhythm of the dialogue to the emotional intensity of the moment. Another trick to keep the pacing tight is through the use of interruptions. This is something Quentin Tarantino is a master of. His characters often interrupt each other, creating a sense of chaos or building tension. These interruptions can mimic the real-life interruptions that happen during emotional moments. But be careful not to overuse this. Too many interruptions can make the scene feel chaotic in a way that distracts from the story. Chapter 6. Cut the fat. Precision versus overload in dialogue. In writing, less is often more, especially when it comes to dialogue. Great dialogue is concise and purposeful. It says just enough to get the point across, without overloading the reader or viewer with unnecessary details. Bad dialogue, on the other hand, often includes filler words and redundancies that distract from the story. The trick to writing good dialogue is knowing what to leave out, not just what to include. In On Writing, Stephen King advises that good writing should be as simple and clear as possible, cutting out anything that doesn't serve the story. He writes, "The most valuable of all talents is that of never using two words when one will do." This is especially true in dialogue. If a character can express their emotions in a single line instead of 5, they should. Brevity makes the impact stronger. If a character is frustrated, a simple, "I'm done," can be more powerful than a long rant. A study by Harvard Business Review on effective communication in storytelling found that people remember concise, impactful phrases far better than long-winded speeches. This research supports the idea that great dialogue is both efficient and impactful. When you remove unnecessary words, you not only create clarity but also ensure the message sticks with the audience. By mastering these strategies, you can elevate your writing to new heights. Whether it's connecting your characters to the audience or trimming down dialogue to create impact, these techniques will make your storytelling stronger. Keep practicing and refining your craft. And remember, every great storyteller started with a single line of dialogue. Don't forget to subscribe for more tips on becoming a better writer. Let's keep creating powerful stories together.